Hi guys, welcome back to the Small Engine Doctors channel. Today I'll be diagnosing a generator without any spark at the spark plug. I'll show you how to do this without any special tools. Here's the generator, by the way. It's a Chinese clone. As you can tell, it's been left outside. The paint's faded. It's been neglected. It was running for a while and then all of a sudden it wouldn't run. Then I checked the spark plug and there's no spark. So that's the issue right now. So what I'm going to do is start with the basics. I'm going to show you guys how I check the spark plug for spark. I'm especially doing this for those of you who are new to small engine repair. First, I want to make sure that the switch is in the on position. Next, locate the spark plug and remove it. I've already got it partially loose there. Next, you want to reinsert the spark plug in the spark plug boot. And now you want to ground the metal part of the spark plug to the engine like this. Also, for safety reasons, make sure to keep the spark plug away from the spark plug hole when turning it over, so you could ground it down here. Now hold the spark plug like this to the engine, turn the engine over. It's going to be easy because the spark plug is out. And while the engine's being cranked over, you want to check for spark. So I'm going to hold it, now pull the engine over. And as you can see, there's no spark at all. And to prove this to you, I'm even going to ground myself from the plug to the engine. And I'm not getting zapped at all. If there were spark, I'd be getting zapped. I would not be able to hold it. By the way, I don't recommend you guys doing this, grounding yourself to the plug in the engine like this. So I'm sure there's no spark there whatsoever. Now sometimes if you can find the wire that comes out of the cowling that is connected to the ignition module, you can disconnect it. In this case, I think it's this wire over here. By disconnecting this wire, I'm bypassing all the electrical systems from the switch to the ignition module. So if it's an electrical problem, I should have spark now if it is indeed the wire going to the ignition module. So what I'm going to do now is pull it over again to see if there's spark. And there's still no spark, so I'm pretty sure that was the wire going to the ignition module. So at this point here, I'm going to take the cowling off and replace the ignition module. So this is the cowling I'll be removing, all this part over here. And there's a few 10mm bolts. There's one here, one there, and two more at the bottom, one here and one over there, and they are all 10mm. By the way, this is a clone of a Honda engine, so if you have the same problems with a Honda engine that looks like this, it will be the same procedure. And now this whole cowling will come right off. And by the way, the wire disconnected was indeed connected to the ignition module. And here's the ignition module, or coil by the way, as we call it. What I'm going to do first though, before I replace it, is I'm going to re-gap the space between the flywheel magnets and the coil itself. So what I'm going to do is put a business card between the flywheel and the coil. Now I'm going to move the flywheel until the magnets are facing the ignition module or coil. And here it is right here. Now what I'm going to do is loosen both 10mm bolts holding it. This will allow the ignition module to get closer to the flywheel. So basically the space between the ignition module and the flywheel now will be the space of the business card. Now I'm going to retighten both bolts. Now I'm just going to turn the flywheel a bit. Now what I'm going to do is ground my spark plug again, and I'm going to turn the engine by hand as fast as I can. And I'm going to check for spark again. And there's still no spark. Now at this point I'm pretty well convinced that the ignition module is faulty, so I'm just going to go ahead and remove it completely. First I'll disconnect the wire at the bottom of it. And I'll pull the ignition module out. You'll have to move the spark plug boot between all the parts here. The easiest way is just to unscrew the spark plug boot from the wire. This will make it a lot easier to get it out. And I can just pull on the ignition module. And by the way, this little wire is clipped into the back here, so you have to disconnect that. And now you can just pull on it, and it's completely off. Now I've been looking through some of the coils I've collected over the years, and I did find an exact replacement. Previously I had put some tape and wrote Chinese generator so I would know what it went on. Actually, this one in my hands here is brand new. So with Chinese generators, basically all you want to do is match up the parts, because it's very hard to find part numbers for these. Actually, somehow the parts will fit on that engine, it's just they're way more expensive than a Chinese replacement coil. So I'm going to go ahead and put in this coil today. The first thing I'm going to do is connect the positive wire underneath the coil, and then I'm going to put it into the tab or clip here. And I'm going to run the wire back here. You want to make sure the spark plug wire is back where it used to be. Now I'm going to put the coil on. I'm going to put both bolts on. I'm just going to put them on loosely. Also make sure that the black wire is behind the ignition module. If it's over here, it may get worn off on the flywheel, so I've got it going back where it's supposed to be. Now I'm going to pull the coil back and insert the business card. I'm going to move the flywheel until the magnet's underneath the coil. So now I'm going to tighten it up. Now hold the ignition module and tighten up the bolts. I don't have the exact torque specs for tightening this up, but just use common sense. Now when you tighten up one bolt, you want to make sure that the other end of the ignition module doesn't come up, or else the gap may be different at each end of the module. Now I'll just pull the card out. Now I'm going to reinstall the spark plug boot. This little cap here goes on like this. This one's a bit damaged, by the way, so I may have to replace that later on. And now you want to screw it into this part. And I'll put the cap back on the boot. Now I'm going to ground the spark plug again, and I'm going to turn the engine over. And you can see there's spark. So that's good. So now I'm going to reconnect the switch wire connected previously. Now I'm going to reinstall the cowling. When you put the cowling on, you want to go behind the spring. And now you want to reinstall the bolts. So you'll have a bolt here, one there, and two underneath. Now all you have left to do is reinstall the spark plug. And by the way, the spark plug wire passes underneath the breather tube here, and then you just clip it on, and that's it. Now I'll try to start it, and hopefully that's all that was wrong with it. I'll just do a quick restart. Now just a quick tip for this generator. Sometimes when you do shut it off like I just did, you have to put the choke back on to get it going again. I had to put it back on to do the second restart. So as you can see, the ignition module was a problem. It's not that hard to replace, and it's not that expensive either. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully somebody learned something out there today. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.